in between Zooming and here in person. Actually, we're at 75 now, so that's a pretty good number when you figure in live and via Zoom. Do we have any guests today? I did see one back here. Scott Davis is here with Emily Mariella. Any other guests today? No? Okay. Well, before kick things over to Daryl Lee, who's going to talk to us about the food drive, got a couple of announcements. You know, I hate to bring this up every week, but I feel as if I don't, then I'm going to jinx them. So how about them Brownies, right? They won again, right? So we're just going to continue to talk about them if they keep winning. So I thought they did everything to give that game away, and it didn't happen. But a new regime for the Cleveland Browns, unbelievable. And how about that kid from Akron? Did anybody see that last night? Did you see LeBron James won his, what is it, 4th title? And the 3 different teams. So I know afterwards there was a lot of talk about him being the GOAT, and we all know what that is, the greatest of all time. So we'll see what happens. Scott Allen, you agree with that or not? No? No, ho-hum. He's an MJ fan, I see. And if you want any entertainment, then turn on to Fox or CNN, where there's the judge, Connie Barrett, I can never say that one, is her confirmation hearing is going to last for the next 3 to 4 days. So if you want to watch that, that'll be interesting for the next 3-4 days. So that's kind of what we have as far as what's happening around the nation and locally here. I did want to touch on some Rotary business, obviously. So Cheryl, if you could go to the next slide. She is not here, but Joy Schmidt is going to be talking about, we are going to have a door hanging campaign that is going to try to get us up to 2,500. That is the goal of the flag committee. Said, hey, if we could get to 2,500 flags, that would really help us out, not only financially in the club, but just overall visibility as well. So this is a graphic that I had up just in case she's here. She's not, but you'll be hearing from her in the weeks to come, some volunteer opportunities in the first week of November. And when you start talking about first week in November, there are a number of opportunities for you to be involved in participating in the club, even with the pandemic. So this will be one that will be outdoors, and you can roam around and do it safely. So she'll be covering that in the next couple weeks. Next slide, please. It's with a heavy heart that if you don't know, but Bill Schultz, he passed away a week ago Sunday, and I apologize that I did not get that last week. I did not know he was not feeling well, or and did not know that he passed on the 4th. But I did not look up exactly, and maybe Lynn, you can do that to see kind of how long of a club member he was. But I know Phil Mariola said he remembers in the early 90s that Bill was part of the club. So if you start doing the math there, folks, it's almost 30 years of service to Wooster Rotary. So losing a member is obviously nothing easy for us, and so maybe just a moment of silence for Bill. Thank you. I know he was a great guy, so he will be missed. Next slide. And then also, it's I know that Scott, you hit on it, but Reed Webster, and for those who don't know, that is the son of Wayne Webster. Reed has been struggling for, it's been a long road. And he passed over the weekend. And, you know, if you get the email that I sent out on Monday, or actually, Lynn, you sent it out, it was middle of the morning. If you click on a link that takes you to kind of Reed's story over the last year, just read the last day. Read about how Wayne talked about losing his son and how it was peaceful, and he thought that it was, he quote unquote said it was perfect. So he did talk in there how his family is extremely exhausted by losing their young child. But I would ask you to maybe go back and just read that and kind of put yourself in Wayne's perspective as we lift him up in our thoughts and our prayers here at the club. So next slide. Also, there's 2 other things that are repetitive. if you like to be a part of the Rotary leadership, if you want to be a part of the board, a committee chair, or the El Presidente, there is a link that has been emailed out to you. And I can tell you that we haven't got much action on that survey, but at least we're asking the question. If there's anybody that wants to be in a leadership role, now would be the time to let us know that. And lastly, this is interesting. Here's the membership directory. And this is just a good example of some folks that probably need to update their photos. So the membership directory, we're trying to update that. I'm not sure who the little guy down there with the glasses is, but yeah. I figured if I was gonna poke fun at Greg and Scott and Chad, I'd have to put myself in there, so I get a pass on that one. Scott, you're looking good, man, you know? Yeah, is Chad in the room? No, Chad is out in Montana today, but that was his senior class photo from 1992, so make sure that those, and I am getting those updates. Some people sent me some great headshots, like Phil, you sent me one yesterday. We're downloading those, make sure those are updated. A number of people have obviously said, hey, I don't use a landline anymore, it's all cell phone, which that's a consistent theme in the directory. So make sure you're continue to send those updates to us so that we can make sure that those are made, those changes. I believe that's gonna probably be it for me. Oh, no, it's not. So this is, the ladies over here are doing the hard work. They're going, oh boy. So we are gonna move back the Meals with a Mission. So right now it says November 2nd. It's not gonna happen. We're gonna push it back a little bit. There are some concerns here with when we print tickets, and the mail is extremely slow right now. So the hope would be that you would have tickets in your hand for this event. Again, carry out opportunities, and then TJ's will allow people to come in with the social distancing requirements, or I guess what is it called? The percentage of, their occupancy. So that would still be an option for you to dine in there, but we're concerned that the tickets getting out to our members, it's extremely slow right now, the mail. So we are just kind of on the fly today. So we'll have to push that one back, but that is going to happen. And that is all of my announcements. I'm going to turn things over to Daryl Lee, who's going to give us an update.
Thank you. This year, the Albion We Food Drive is a go. I reached out to two superintendents a couple weeks ago with Nate Schindelwolf and Dr. Tefts. Number one, were they still interested in having it this year? And they were both on board and said we have to. People to people, the food pantry depends on it too greatly for us not to have it this year. So we've worked out through some modifications that we are going to do it. We are looking at 2 different days this year that food will be delivered to people will be November the 6th and November the 13th. Worcester City Schools will be delivering the food to people. What we'll be looking for is volunteers so they can get that food at people, the food pantry, and getting that into the right spots. Triway, we will be picking up food. It's going to be delivered. We're coordinating with box trucks now to have food picked up at Worcester Township, Shreve Elementary, and Triway Middle School on the 6th and the 13th. So we are going to have it. It's going to be a modification like everything else these days, but we are going to have it, and those drop-off pickup times are going to be November 6th and November 13th. If you have any interest in helping with this year's food drive, I'm going to be reaching out to the group that we typically have, but we would love to have more. Please reach out to me, email me, give me a call if you will be interested in helping, because we are going to need a lot of assistance this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. And I know that Dr. Tefts, you're on Zooming here. Thank you so much for the Worcester City Schools for continuing to support that. And I don't know if Nate Schindelwolf is from Triway, if he's on, but your continued support of the people to people and the food drive, we really appreciate it. We know it's a difficult year. Everybody has their plates full, and we want to make sure that every person in Wayne County has their plates full throughout the season as we do the can. So Daryl, thank you so much for all your work on that. I think that's going to be it. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't ask if there's any announcements out in the audience or Zoomers. If you have a question, feel free to put that in the chat. as we make sure that any announcement that needs to be made is being made from the podium. Doug, you have anything for us today? Any thoughts of wisdom? World peace. That's what Doug says. World peace. We'll share that. Okay. Without any further ado, I'm going to have Dee Vadia come up, who will introduce our speaker today. Dee, thank you.
Folks, Dan Owolabi is co-founder of Owolabi Leadership and executive director of Branches Worldwide. A sought-after and captivating keynote speaker, Dan has spent over a decade helping leaders develop greater influence with customers, colleagues, and employees. A retired pastor, Dan works with a wide variety of leaders inside and outside the church and around the world, helping them clarify their identity and leverage their influence in a service to others. A client of his, Brian Miller, president and CEO of door manufacturer Provia, with facilities in Ohio and Mississippi, said, "I love how Dan relates with people. He clearly cares about developing people into great leaders, and he won't let you off easily. His contentedness with those he is speaking to is amazing, and his way of inspiring through stories is unforgettable." His latest book, Authentic Leadership: How to Lead with Nothing to Hide, Nothing to Prove, and Nothing to Lose, is available on Amazon. Dan holds a bachelor's degree from Malone University and a master's degree from Ashland University. He lives in Ohio with his wife, Erica, and 2 daughters. Please welcome Dan Owolabi, author, speaker, and coach. Dan.
Sure you're all right, man.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is good to be here. Now, Dee, I appreciate the introduction. Just as a quick starter, every time I speak somewhere, I tend to get the same question over and over and over again. I spent some time in the Dominican Republic a couple weeks ago and got the same question again. My wife and I have been married for 13 years. She has my last name. She gets the same question over and over again too. I've got a couple kids. They also get the same question. The question is, how the heck do you say your last name? And I want to help you with that, because I think in order to get started, we should get on the same page. The way you say it is by imagining yourself. I'm going to tell you a quick story so that you'll never forget it. You have to imagine yourself in a hotel. And let's say you're on the 3rd floor, and suddenly you get this craving for ice. You know the ice is on the 2nd floor, so you get in the elevator, and you press a button. But you press the wrong button, and you don't know it. Suddenly, the elevator's going down. And then the doors open, and you walk out, and you say, "Oh, Owolabi." That's how you say my last name. I'm Dan Owolabi. Dee said it well. I'm an author. I work with leaders all over the world. I have the opportunity to live right here in Worcester. We were talking at our table about how unique of a place this is, and I think it is a very unique place with unique responsibilities, but unique privileges. It's been good to be here. But today, I want to talk to you about a word, something that in seasons of change, like right now, really kind of hits home. And I imagine a lot of you have been thinking about this word. The word is legacy. I want to talk to you about your legacy. Oftentimes when we think about legacy, we think about our business legacy. We think about business success, how much money we've made in a year, how much business we do. Sometimes we think about relational success when we think about a legacy. How many people do we know, our network? There's a lot of different definitions of legacy. But today I want to talk to you about legacy that doesn't have anything to do with success, but has everything to do with significance. I'll tell you what I mean by that. About 20 years ago, my parents moved from Smithville to Dalton. That's where I went to high school. And I was the new kid. I was in 8th grade. I was the new kid. And if you've ever been to a middle school, or if you were in middle school, you remember, if you're the new kid, you want to make your mark. You just want to demonstrate that you're somebody, because, being somebody in 8th grade means a ton. And so you want to demonstrate that you're somebody. That's what I wanted to do. I was the new kid, and I wanted to figure out who I was, and I wanted to show everybody who that person was. And so I remember looking for a way to make my mark. I was looking around, and I suddenly one day saw this big chart on the wall, had a bunch of numbers on it. It was track and field records. And I remember looking at all the records and saying to myself, you know what? I'm going to break a record. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it. I remember going up to the coach and saying, Coach, it was Coach Clark, Coach, I know I've never run track for Dalton, but I just want to let you know that I'm going to break a record this year. And Coach looked at me and he said, man, you idiot. He didn't say that. But I know he was thinking it, because I would have been thinking it. But I was just so confident and so cocky that I could do that. And I said, Coach, tell me, give me a record up there that you think that I can break. What's something, you've seen me in practice, what's something that you think I can do? And he said, you know what? If there's anyone, it's probably the 200-meter dash. So I said, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. The record of the 200-meter dash was 25.2. And I remember thinking, I can do that, I can do that. I had to get 25.1 or lower in order to break the record. I can do it. So I stayed after practice and practiced hard. I came in early before practice and practiced hard. And I remember meet after meet after meet, not even getting close to the record. But I kept pushing, kept practicing. The very last meet of the year was the all-county meet. Every school showed up. It was a Chippewa, I remember it. I remember lining up, very last race, thinking, I would just love to break this record. Just last shot. Come on. And so I'm the 8th person on the curve. If you've ever seen the 200-meter dash run, it's run on a curve. So I'm the 8th person, the furthest one over. I could see every runner in front of me. And I got my hands on the ground, and the gun goes off. And I start running. And I'm running, and I'm running. And then suddenly something strange happens. I pass the 7th person. And I'm running, and I'm running. And then I pass the 6th person. And I'm running, and I pass the 5th person, and suddenly I can feel something happening. Like I'm running faster than I've ever run before. And so now I'm up on my toes, and I'm really running. My form is terrible, but I am running as hard as I can. Then I pass the 4th person, and the 3rd person. And then I get literally 20 feet from the finish line, and I pass the 2nd person. They get very close, two feet from the end, and I push myself across the line, and I pass the 1st person. And I won the race. I was so excited. I'm jumping up and down. I am just thrilled. But it's not over. I didn't know if I broke the record or not. So I run over to the coach. I said, Coach Clark, you've got your timer? What happened? What did I get? What did I get? He looks at me, looks at his stopwatch. He's all dramatic. I'm like, come on, tell me. He's like looking at it. Dan, you had to get 25.1. You got 25.1. You broke the record. I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. I was jumping. This was the biggest moment of my life. I was so excited. You know that feeling when you work really hard for something and then you finally get it? You put the effort in and it was worth it. It felt so good. I remember the feeling of watching them take the name of the other guy. His name was Tim Spires, but who's watching? Take the name of the other guy down and put my name up there. Just got to the school. I've got a record. It's going to stand there for a long time. I felt so proud. Then a couple years later, about 5, 6, 7 years later, after I'd graduated from college, I was feeling nostalgic. You have those days when you feel nostalgic. And I thought, I'm just going to drive by and maybe I'll just head down to Dalton again. Hadn't been back in town in a long time. I'm just going to drive by and see, maybe that record's still standing. Maybe it's still there. It was like 10 years later. And so I remember going into Dalton, and I take a left at the light, and I'm driving, and I'm coming up on the next light, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get excited here. Maybe it's still there. And I turn the corner to where the school is, and you wouldn't believe what I saw. It was gone. Not just the record. The whole school was gone. They tore the school down. The record wasn't even close to standing there. I was shocked. And then I was sad. Because I started thinking to myself, gosh, you work so hard for something, and then it's gone. I remember thinking to myself on the way home, do the things that I work for, how do I know that they last? How do I know that they'll be remembered after I leave? I started thinking about legacy. You know, I imagine you've thought about that same thing too. You know, things change really quickly. I think 2020 is a great reminder of that. And everybody here watching online, everybody here in the room, we come from different industries, different generations, different years of experience. But when we put our head on the pillow at night, I imagine there are some nights that we ask ourselves that question. Do the things that I'm working on, the causes that I'm working for, the effort I put in, is it going to be remembered by anybody? Do the things that I work for, do they last? For some of you in here, when you think about that, you think about your business. You think about the years that you've put in, the time, the sweat, the toil, the tears. And when you come to the very end and you're about to hand it off, you wonder to yourself, does anybody know? Or will anybody care the effort and the time that I put into this? For some of you, when you think about legacy, you think about your relationships. Think about your friends that you've made over the years, maybe even here at Rotary. When I'm gone, will people remember? For some of you, think about your kids. You think, not just will my kids remember me, but will my kids talk to their kids about me and what I've done? For some of you, you're building your legacy right now, and you're putting your time and your effort and your sweat into the thing today. And there are some days, if you give yourself a chance just to pause for a second, you wonder, does it make a difference? Is it worth it? Will anyone remember? You know, if you've asked yourself that question before, I'm glad you're here. Because I want to show you what it looks like to turn your legacy into something that is lasting, how to make your work matter. You know, it starts by understanding the nature of legacy, where your legacy is found. You know, there's two great quotes that I keep close to my heart. The first one is a quote by Gandhi. It says this, it says, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." What does that mean? The other quote that I love, as a former pastor, I go back to phrases like this again and again. This is a quote that comes directly from Jesus. He says this, he says, "I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in a soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives." What does that mean? Both quotes point to the same thing. Your legacy and my legacy isn't found in the things that we do. Our legacy is found in the people that we invest in. Take, for example, this apple. I want to ask you a question, not a trick question, but I want you to think about the answer. I got this apple here, and, you know, the question is, what is the legacy of an apple? You see, the apple in itself is just an apple. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of impact unless I throw it at you. But the impact of an apple isn't that it lives in itself or for itself. The impact of the apple really happens the moment it gives itself up. It gives itself away. Because if you think about it, how many trees are in an apple? You might say one. You wouldn't be close. You might say two. You might say 10. There are hundreds of thousands of trees in a single apple. Because when an apple dies, when it's buried, when it gives its life away, suddenly its seeds become trees, and those trees produce more apples, and those apples produce more trees, and from one apple, you can have a grove of fruit. The legacy of an apple is found as it gives its life away. If you've ever wondered what your legacy is, I want to ask you today to stop asking that question. And instead of asking, what's my legacy? Start asking, who is my legacy? Who should I be pouring my life into? Who should I be giving my knowledge away to? Who is coming next? Who's behind me? It might be someone in my family, it might not be. Who is my legacy? I want to tell you a quick story about why that's so important. I recently ran into a story about a man named Bob Pierce. Now, Bob Pierce is an incredible man who did a lot in his life. When he was young, he was asked to take a couple volunteer trips around the world. And his heart was struck. This is in the 1950s. Heart was struck by the pain and suffering that he saw in third world countries, particularly in China. Bob Pierce took the vision and the things that he saw overseas, and he brought them back to the United States. And Bob Pierce was the first guy to start taking video and film of painful situations he saw overseas and start showing them to people here in the States, to businesses, to leaders, and saying, look what I see, will you help me? Bob Pierce was the founder of World Vision. If you're familiar with World Vision, they're a great organization that works with the physical needs of people around the world. Bob Pierce, between the early 1950s and early 1960s, in those 10 years was the most well-traveled man in America. He was among the 10 most well-traveled people in the world. He flew all over the place, working to make lives better. He fed millions of people, did amazing work. Bob Pierce is someone who started Samaritan's Purse, which is another well-known organization, started World Vision. But the legacy of Bob Pierce is much sadder than you think, because he impacted thousands of lives. But the lives that he failed to impact were the lives in his own family. See, there's a story of Bob Pierce. He was on a plane trip to Korea, and he got a message from his daughter. He'd been traveling a lot. His daughter was going through significant depression. She was in her early 20s. Her dad had been gone for a long time, and she said, Dad, I need you to come home. I just want to be with you for a second. But he had a major speaking engagement. He was almost there, halfway across the world. And he told her, like he told her 1,000 times before, I can't. I'm sorry. You're going to have to figure this out on your own. That night, she attempted suicide. His wife ended up flying back. He stayed in Korea. He had work to do. And then when he flew back, she attempted suicide again, and this time she was successful. When Bob Pierce died, he was estranged from his family. He was so poor at personal relationships that he had been asked to leave World Vision, asked to leave Samaritan's Purse, accomplished a lot, but forgot to ask himself the critical question. It's not what is my legacy, but is who? Who matters most? Who do I need to pour my life into? I can do a lot in the world, but who needs me more than anything? Bob Pierce's story is a sad story, but it doesn't have to be your story. Because you still have opportunities to invest in the right people. People who need you, your presence, your wisdom. They need to rub shoulders with you. They need to hear your stories. They need your listening ear. For them to succeed in the world past 2020, they need your hard-fought wisdom. They need you to give your life away. So you develop a legacy by asking, who is my legacy? Here's one more thing to do to develop a legacy. You find the apple seed in others. In every person, there's potential. There's things that are uncovered that haven't, there are things that are undiscovered that need to be uncovered. Imagine this with me. Imagine something that you're good at, whether it's sales or networking or finances or whatever. Imagine something that you're really good at right now. Strategic planning. Imagine the first time you realized that you were good at that. I'd be willing to bet when you found out you were good at that thing, there was somebody in your life that pointed it out to you. That said, hey, did you know that you're really good at that? Did you know that you're uniquely talented? That is a gift. Because the things that we're good at, we don't realize on our own oftentimes. Usually it's somebody from outside our life that steps in and says, hey, you're good at that. We all need people to call out the acorn, the apple seed in us. To say, I see potential in you. I remember the first time somebody did that to me. I was a teacher, high school history teacher. And I was sitting in the pews at a church. And I stood up, and it was a small church where you have like sharing time, and they give you the mic, and everyone has a chance to talk, you know. So I stood up and I said some things about my parents, my dad, and that kind of stuff. And I sat down, and a businessman that I had only spoken to once or twice was sitting in the pew in front of me. As soon as I was done, church is still going, as soon as I was done, he whips around, puts his shoulder over the pew, looks me directly in the eye. I've only talked to him 4 or 5 times. Looks directly in the eye and says, have you ever thought about becoming a pastor? I'm not going to be a pastor. No, really. And you should think about being a public speaker too, because that was different. I was thunderstruck. I had never been told that before. And he just pointed at me and said, I see this in you. And then guess what? Became a pastor. Became a public speaker. Now I spend my life working with leaders, helping them develop significance in their life. And that's what I want for you. For you to take the last years of your life, whatever you have left, be it 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and you spend your time investing in the next generation because you know in your heart of hearts, your life lives on when you give it away to the people around you who need it. Make your legacy about who and not what. Thanks for your time. I had spoken to Dee, and Dee had mentioned that here at Rotary, you guys will do from time to time question answer. I'm not exactly sure how much time we have. 5 minutes. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer to help.
Can you tell us about your first day at Delta? Because you look a little different than most of the kids.
I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by that? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, first day of Dalton was challenging in a lot of ways. Obviously, at the time, I think I was 6 foot and black, and I've always been black. Not always 6 foot, I'm 6'4" now. But yeah, stood out in a lot of ways, and I think you get the typical questions. I'm 14, and people ask, if I can dunk, if I play basketball, if I know LeBron, things like that. But what I learned is that in a community full of white people, not very often do people run into other black people and have the opportunity to really rub shoulders with them. And so it's important to understand that people just have questions sometimes, without malice, not racism, just curiosity. And so giving people grace was something I learned over the last, 20 years or so. So great question. Still there. Yeah, the record's still there. He asked if the record still stands. It is still there. I'm amazed. I was like, wow, I can't believe that. So yeah, it's still there. They moved it to a new school, and so I didn't know that, but at the time, but yeah. So.
How old were you when the gentleman or lady said that you were a good speaker? She considered you a pastor.
Yeah, I was 23 at the time. Yeah, so yeah. That guy's still a really good friend of mine. Good guy. Yes, where was your first church? It was a small church in Walnut Creek, Ohio. So you want to talk about standing out. In the middle of Amish country, you can't go anywhere without people saying, oh, yeah, you're that black guy, because there's only one, so yeah. There's more than one now, but yeah.
Maybe talk about the services that you offer under leadership. I mean, if someone's looking for service, what services do you offer? Business, individual?
Yeah. So I do keynote speeches. Before the pandemic, we do that a lot. I speak to businesses right now, actually going into businesses and talking to their executive teams. I do one-on-one leadership coaching. Oftentimes, I learned this as a pastor. Business leaders oftentimes have things on their shoulders that they can't share with anybody. And so as a pastor, I would hear things from people that guys and gals wouldn't even tell their spouse because they just needed somebody who was a confidant. And so right now I do that with a variety of people in a variety of industries, helping them become more effective leaders. So, yeah. And then I lead an international nonprofit that, again, works with leaders to help them be more effective. So.
You got a book there. Everybody know where to get that. Actually, that's your book.
I wrote a book. It's called Authentic Leadership. Yeah, I'm really proud of the influence it's had. Actually, I just got a handwritten note from the CEO of Walmart this morning saying he had read the book. So that was surprising. Still kind of on cloud 9 because of that. But you can find it on Amazon. So.
Any other questions? Dan, we really appreciate it. For the Zooming audience, we'll do like a Ted Cruz book, promo here. The Authentic Leadership by Dan Owolabi. And it's been great being somebody who local in the community, seeing you grow, Dan, and kind of seeing your network, span out, and wish you nothing but the best. And we're glad that you're a part of Wooster and your family's here, and just great to see you continue to grow. So thank you for being with us today. I do have something for you, but I'm looking over here and I'm not sure. Oh, hold on. It might be here. Us being on it's like a road show here, man. So all of our speakers get a rendition of our rotary wheel with the 4-way test on the back. It's made by the Village Network. So this is something you can put at your desk or in your home. So thanks again, Dan, for being here. We appreciate it. Couple things out the door. Lynn, you sent me a note. So Bill Schultz was a part of Rotary for 36 years. Is that correct? Yep, 36 years. So it's amazing how time flies by. Next week is Minglewood. So we've got, there's been like a beer and alcohol theme here recently. So I don't know what the heck's going on, but I'm okay with it. So Minglewood is next Monday. So if you want to hear about what they're doing downtown, the local distillery, make sure you're here. And then on October 26th, I know we're starting to get down there, we're actually gonna, in lieu of a meeting at noontime, we're gonna have a social here that is gonna allow you to sample some of that Minglewood and JFB here. And we'll figure out exactly the time, but it'll be an opportunity for you to come here at 4, socially distant, of course, but enjoy fellowship with one another. So is there anything for the good of the order here before we adjourn? Dan, awesome job, man. I've been part of Rotary for almost 10 years now, and I've never seen an audience so glued into you, or glued into speakers. So nicely done, man. All right, anything else? No, we stand adjourned, folks. Take care.